everybody, it's Miss O'Sullivan here today, and welcome to days 13 and 14 of our summer intervention program. It's kind of crazy how fast the program has flown by, and we just want to remind everyone that this screencast is for the students completing the completing the teacher-assigned tasks. As always, we're here to help you. And in addition to our live daily Google Meets, Ms. Harris has an additional schedule here that you can check out if you're looking for some additional support or have an additional question. We're looking forward to seeing you Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday in our Google Meet. Wednesday and Thursday, days 13 and 14, will be our last 2 days of work, and then we're looking for Friday to do a little bit of celebrating. We're going to continue today with the same learning target that we had earlier in the week to analyze classic and contemporary or modern poetry to unearth its deeper meaning. So really to analyze it. Your student checklist, your work is right here. 1, to watch the screencast. We've had a lot of low numbers and then a lot of blank or incomplete or work not done correctly. So pretty please make sure you're watching these. 2, you're going to complete ELA Task 1. We suggest that you do steps 1 and 2 on Thursday, and then save steps 1 and 2 for Wednesday, and then steps 3 and 4 for Thursday. So please take a minute. You can always pause it here. This is a great slide to use for your checklist. So first we're going to look together at a poem called Sympathy by Paul Laurence Dunbar. And this is slightly off topic, but you'll notice that I've linked here. And this is information about the author. If you've never heard of Paul Dunbar before, one of the reasons I think it was really important to highlight extra information is that he's a really influential Black poet in American literature. And it's a really big deal to make sure we celebrate these poets. And you know, not a lot of poetry written by the child of freed slaves would usually be seen as classic or important, but as you know, of course it is. So I just wanted to highlight that in case, you know, you saw that name and you were like, I wonder a little more about this poet. So feel free to click that link and read here on the Poetry Foundation. That's also something you could do in terms of some independent reading. You know, reading about people is always really interesting. Okay, back to our learning target today. We're going to analyze classic and contemporary literature to unveil a deeper meaning. So here we have Sympathy by Paul Laurence Dunbar. I'm going to ask you to go ahead and make sure you read it to yourself. It's on the left. You'll notice that I have added annotations. So what I did is I used our codes and I matched my annotations with the code. So what I highlighted on the left is what I wrote about on the right in highlight. If I made something blue on the left, I wrote about it in blue on the right. So you can start to see an example of what an annotated poem would look like. So I know what the caged bird feels, alas. My connection there is that there's a poem by Maya Angelou called I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, and actually a whole book. So that was an immediate connection, like, I've heard this before. Where? When the sun is bright on the upland slopes, when the wind stirs soft through the springtime grass, and the river flows like a stream of glass, I kind of took a moment there and thought, wow, all of this mentions nature, about things being free and able to do what they want when they want. You know, a river does what it wants. So does the sun, so does the wind. So it was just kind of interesting in terms of the feeling that the author is creating here. There were 2 words that I didn't know what they meant, so I underlined them. But then the annotation for that should be the definition. So it's not like you're just going to underline it and then leave it blank. You know, if you don't know what it means, the goal is we look it up. So OPES, I had to do some deep research here actually. It's just short for open, just to make the poem flow, kind of like author, creativity there. And then chalice, which is a cup or a goblet. Then we went into stanza 2. Okay, I had some more connections here. I know why the caged bird beats his wing till its blood is red on the cruel bars. I wrote that this seems to be the opposite of the nature reference up here, right? Stanza 1 and stanza 2 seem to be opposites. Then I had a thought about, the author's giving inside and outside perspectives of the cage. Up here you have outside, here you have inside. There's another word I didn't understand, so I looked it up, and then you'll continue to see. So this serves two purposes. One, this is our mentor, right? This is what we think your annotated poem should look like. Two, we're going to ask you for today to now use these annotations to break down this poem and to answer the questions on the following slide. So there are 5 questions here about Paul Dunbar's poem Sympathy. And we're asking you, after reading it, after looking at my annotations, some of which I read to you, some of which I didn't, we want you now to respond to these questions being super specific. So talking about lines, talking about paragraphs, copy and paste a line if you think that would help you. So the 5 questions are: 1, what's the essential or overall meaning of the poem? 2, how does the poetic tool of symbolism emphasize meaning in the poem? Quick reminder, symbols are when one thing represents something else. So a flower represents springtime. 3, what are some things outside of the bird's cage that could be considered symbols? Explain what they mean. What are some of the things inside the cage that could be considered symbols? Explain what they mean. And finally, what would you say is the life lesson that the author wants the readers to learn from the poem? So of our checklist, that would be step 1 and 2. And that's what we're suggesting you complete for Thursday. Sorry, for Wednesday. I keep saying that. We want you to complete it for Wednesday. For Thursday, we want you now to do independent work that shows us you understand this learning target. So for Thursday's work, we've given you a contemporary or a modern poem, which is actually a song, Caged Bird, by Alicia Keys. And we're asking you first to read it and annotate it, remembering that this is what an annotated poem or song should look like. So here's yours. We want you to read it, annotate, and then just like we did for Paul Dunbar's poem Sympathy, we want you to answer some questions using the song Caged Bird. We want you to be specific. We want you to use lines. We want you to refer to stanzas. First question, what's the essential or overall meaning of the song? 2, what symbols does Alicia Keys use in her song Caged Bird that are different than the poem Sympathy? So I don't want you to tell me they both talked about birds. I want you to tell me what Alicia Keys used that's different. 3, why do you think Alicia Keys chose to use she, her pronouns and Paul Dunbar chose to use he, his pronouns in their works? 4, Paul Dunbar published his poem Sympathy in 1899. Maya Angelou published her book I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings in 1969. And Alicia Keys released her song Caged Bird in 2001. Why is this, birds, a symbol that keeps being repeated? That's 4. And 5, finally, explain how sympathy and Caged Bird are connected. We're hoping that you had some fun looking at classic and contemporary poems, and we're really looking forward to celebrating with you on Friday. Please make sure you reach out to us if there are any questions about anything you need to do for July 22nd and July 23rd. Looking forward to seeing you.